So, in today's episode of Math Fun, we're going to be looking at the second part of 13.1. Another fun memory from geometry, special right triangles, otherwise known as 45-45 triangles or 30-60. You might remember them. Usually, these are among people's favorites along with geometric proofs. So, I don't love calling these X's because later on they're going to ask us for X's and Y. So what I always do is on a 45-45 triangle, I label the two sides that form the 90. They're known as the legs. I label those as ends because they're the same. They came from like a square that got cut diagonally in half. And then this third side is that same number times the square root of 2. So instead of X's, I just use ends. So the relationship between these three sides is always the same. This allows you to find the sides when you only know one. You can't use Pythagorean theorem. You don't use trig at all. You just have to kind of know the relationships that these will be the same and that will be that same number times the square root of 2. In a 30, 60, 90 triangle, the short side is going to be some number. The hypotenuse is going to be 2 times that number. And then what we call the long leg, meaning it makes the 90, is going to be that number times the square root of 3. So the way that I go about doing this is every time I see the triangle, I decide, is it a 45-45? In which case I go ahead and label the sides using the n root 2 from here. If I look at the problem and see that it's a 30-60 triangle, then I go ahead and label using the n, 2n on the hypotenuse, and n root 3. So that's the first thing I do depending on which triangle is in the problem. Then, whichever one it is, the second step for either one, I go ahead and I solve for n. Because n is the one that relates all three sides. So whichever side they gave you as a number, you use it to solve for n, and that will allow you to travel around and fill in the other sides. So let me show you what I mean. Here, a 30-degree angle. Okay, so this one's a 30, 60, 90. And as soon as I know that this is a 30, 60, 90, I'm thinking I gotta label it using n on the shortest side, 2n on the hypotenuse, and n root 3 on the third side. Okay, so that was my first step. Now I need to solve for n, and the way you're going to do that is use whatever number was given. And in this triangle, the number that was given was the 8. So I know that 8 is my 2n side. So if 8 equals 2n, then clearly 1n would have to be 4. And so by solving for n, I know that this side, which is n, has to be a 4. And then this side, which takes n and multiplies it by root 3, would have to be 4 times root 3. So now I can look back at the labels of x and y. X is going to be 4 root 3. Side y is going to be just a 4. And again, they want exact values. I don't need to simplify mine because they can't simplify, but I can't use a decimal. I have to use the radical, which is why I can't just use sine, cosine, or tangent off of my calculator. Alrighty, so here, this is a 45. So I think, okay, this is a 45-45. What's the relationship with those? I need to label the two legs as n's, and then the other side is n root 2. Then I'm supposed to solve for n. Well, I don't really, using the number given, I don't really have to solve because the number they gave me is 5. That is the n side. So then if n is 5, this other side, which is also n, would have to be 5. And this side, which takes n and multiplies it by root 2, would have to be 5 root 2. So looking back, they wanted me to solve for x and y. X is this side, so that's my 5 root 2. They wanted me to solve down here for y, which was an n side, so that's just a plain old 5. All right, so here in number 6, this is a 45 again, so this is my 45-45. So I know that the two legs are going to be n, and then this side's n root 2. So now this one gets a little dicey because when I go to solve for n using the number given, this is worst case scenario. They gave me the side. I'll show my work down here since I have all this space. They gave me this side, and I know that 12 equals n times the square root of 2. But I want to be able to find just n. So if it's multiplied by root 2, I need to divide both sides by root 2. Well, now I know that n equals 12 over root 2, but that's not something I can use because it's got to be rationalized. So I rationalize that. These stay separate, but this becomes a regular 2, and now these guys can go ahead and reduce. So when I'm all done, finally, I find out that n is 6 root 2. So this step up here of solving for n using the number given turned out to be kind of a doozy. But now I got it. So I go back here. N is 6 root 2, so that goes here. This side is already done. That was a 12. And then this side is also n because it was 45, 45. So that means this side's also a 6 root 2. So when I go back to see what they're looking for, side x is this guy, so 6 root 2. Side y is that guy, so 6 root 2. And I knew they'd be the same because they are in a 45, 45. Last one, the grand finale of fun. This is a 30-60, so once I know that it's a 30-60, I start thinking, how am I going to label that? Short side is going to be n, hypotenuse across from the 90 is 2n, and then the long leg is n root 3. Now that I have it labeled, I'm supposed to go ahead and solve using the number given. So again, this one's not that much fun because the side they gave me is a regular number, and I'm trying to solve for this with a radical in it. So to get n alone, I'd have to divide out my root 3. So n equals 7 over root 3. I have to rationalize that, and I get 7 root 3 over 3. Yuck. But that's my n value. So when I go back up here, my n side is 7 root 3 over 3. My 2n side is going to be 2 times 7 root 3 over 3. 2 is like being over 1. So in the end, this side becomes 14 root 3 over 3. So when I look at what they want an x and a y. X is this side, which was 14 root 3 over 3. Can't reduce because 14 and 3 don't have anything in common. And then they wanted side y, which is the 7 root 3 over 3 side. So I got it. So just get into the habit of following those steps. Label it based on what kind of triangle it is, and then solve for n. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's a little messy, but once you have n, you can just travel around and quickly fill in the other sides because they're all just relationships to n. So hopefully that was a good reminder of how to go about doing that. Give yourself some practice. If you have any questions, let me know. Peace out.